comfortable. So to start off our practice session, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are all meeting. So that varies from one person to the next. And I would like to pay my respect to elders past and present, and any other Aboriginal elders of communities who may be practicing here with us today. So thank you for joining us. And to start with, can I perhaps have typed into the chat one word of how you're traveling right now? So at this moment in time, how are you traveling? Slowly, thanks Pearl. Relaxed, Nancy, wonderful. Day off from memory, I think it was. Foggy, yep, Therese, I would probably agree with you there. So apologies for my dictation or pronunciation of different words tonight. We are week 4 of lockdown, stage 4. Tired, autopilot, busy. A few tired in there, hectic, tired and distraction. Perfect. Well, you've all come to the right place. We are going to check back in at the end of the session to see if there's been a shift. There may have been, there may not have been. I like to explore this space with a sense of curiosity. And so building upon that note, and feel free to take your microphones off and to have a bit of a chat. Is there anything specific that you would like to get out of this session? Because I have some ideas of things that we can do, but it is very much an organic session too, and I can be flexible. I'm an amputee, so I have a lot of bad amputee plans, and I am actually currently legless. No, I did not start drinking whiskey at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. on a Monday night, but I can be flexible and legs can go here, there, and everywhere. So what is it that you guys would like to get out of the session this evening? Maybe put your hand up and then I can call out a name if you wanted to say anything. Or just put yourself off mute.
I think the technique for mindfulness to be able, like when you're going through hectic and a lot of stress and different things, to be able to switch it off, and when you need some time to be able to have that skill, just to be able to shut your mind off for a little while, recoup and then start again.
Thanks, Robin. So maybe perhaps it would be useful for us to build in how we can ground ourselves a little bit when we do find ourselves running from one Zoom meeting to the next Zoom meeting and all of the crazy things that are going on within our schedules, and to learn to become aware of perhaps some of those autopilot thoughts that the mind is telling us. Wonderful. Thank you. We can incorporate some of that. Anyone else?
Hi, it's Heidi. I'm coming from Awabakal land in Newcastle, and yeah, hi, a couple of familiar faces. I'm keen to see a couple of familiar faces, and yeah, enjoy that sense of home, which Australasian Women in Emergencies is for me. And I just want to let you know, it can only be here till 5:30. Yeah, properly.
No worries at all. Thank you, Heidi. So we're looking for a sense of connection during this time, and thank you for reaching out, and completely no dramas. Tune in, tune out whenever you need to. We can be flexible in that sense. And I think we've got a comment here from Lauren in the chat regarding interested to see how we can approach meditation. And as we said in the invite, this invitation was open to people who are completely new to mindfulness and the space, as well as people who have a little bit more experience. So welcome to everyone in that sense. I would like to now move into, for those who are new to the space, and for those who maybe have been practicing a little while, you might have heard this metaphor from Taoism before, but it really helps to encapsulate this concept of mindfulness, and maybe help to put it into practice a little bit for us. And it's over 7,000 years old. And while we only have written scriptures for about 2,000 years, so, you know, the scientists are kind of guessing a little bit there. But the story goes that our thoughts and our feelings are like the weather, and they're constantly changing. So sometimes it's sunny and warm, and sometimes we have 153 kilometer gusts of wind recorded in Warrnambool, like we did on Thursday night or Friday morning. The weather is constantly changing, freezing and rain, whatever it might be. And that's exactly the same as our thoughts. They're constantly changing throughout the day. However, even though the weather is constantly changing, the sky itself will always be there. So the severest storm, the fiercest of winds cannot damage that sky. And sometimes we may forget that the sky is there, in that we might not be able to see it because there's too many clouds, there's too much rain, etc. But if we rise high enough, sooner or later, we'll be able to see that sky stretching in all directions. It doesn't have any borders, and it doesn't have any boundaries. So there's this part of ourselves that's like the sky. It doesn't have boundaries. It stretches in all directions, and it's always there. We can always tap into it. And that's what we call our mindful self, or our observing self. There's a lot of technical names for it. But we can use various techniques, some of which we'll be going through tonight and then over the next couple of sessions as well, to help us tap into this part of ourselves. And I think personally, when I first started my journey in this space, I probably, to be honest, put mindfulness up on this pedestal. And, you know, I'm like, oh, there's these Buddhist monks who have been practicing for, you know, 10 or 20 years and have hundreds and thousands of hours of meditation experience. And I'd be sitting there doing my mindfulness practice, and I'd be like, am I doing this right? I can't be mindful. This is too hard. This is stupid. And having all of these thoughts running through my mind. And then further down the track, I heard all of these different well-respected, not only researchers, but Buddhist monks speak that, you know, mindfulness is an innate part of being a human being. We can always tap into it. You don't need years and years and years of training. We can develop it as a skill for sure. We can train our brain because it's highly malleable, but it's an innate part of all of us. So building upon that, it would be helpful to get a little bit of a gauge of the experience in the room tonight. So I'm just wondering if you can either put your hands up or type into the chat if you are new to mindfulness. So if you put your hand up, for those who do have their cameras on, if you're new to mindfulness. Okay, and type into the chat if you are new to mindfulness, or if you have a little bit of experience in mindfulness, can you put your hand up for me? A little bit of experience, cool. Beautiful. Feel free to just type into the chat too, bits and pieces. Thank you. Awesome. And would anybody consider themselves a complete expert in the space? Beautiful. I've been practicing for 10 years now, and I still feel like I'm a bit of a beginner. So I think it'll be a lifelong journey for me, that's for sure. So just to give a little bit of a helping hand out for those who are perhaps a little bit new to this space. some traditional definitions, probably blending a little bit of East and West traditions, focused around mindfulness, and it's the ability to bring yourself back to the present moment. There's the typical without judgment part of it, but I mean, when you tell somebody to bring yourself back to the present moment without judgment, it's like, well, how do I actually do that? So I like to use the term, let's use various anchors or senses and bring ourselves back to the present moment, using our curiosity, because we can actually, we identify a little bit more with curiosity, and our inner child as well. So bringing ourselves back to the present moment, focusing on an anchor, whether it be the breath, which I personally love because A, we carry it around with us everywhere. B, it's for free. And C, we can have a whole lot of beautiful physiological impacts on the body when we are focusing on our breath. So that's just a little bit of a brief definition of mindfulness. Naturally, there's no solid definition or agreed upon definition, and it's your own personal journey. So I really encourage you all to maybe come up with your own definition that's going to help you on this journey to perhaps enrich your life a little bit. So what I'd like, our first practice or experiment for our session this evening, we're going to be tapping into all of our senses. And we're going to do a really quick one called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. And then we're going to explore that technique, but in greater detail. So the 5-4-3-2-1 technique is something that you can do literally in about 60 seconds. Whereas we can use the senses to extend that practice and build it out to a longer time, depending on your situation and what you're using it for. So what I'd like us to do to begin with, I'm just thinking how I want to explore this, but whenever we're practicing, there's this synergy between our mind and our body. And while you can do a whole lot of different informal and formal practices of mindfulness, generally we find if we look to still the body and create a sense of grounding, then that physical experience in our body will translate into our mind. So saying that, I invite you all now to push your feet firmly into the floor for me. And because we are doing a practice session now, you're more than welcome, as I mentioned earlier, to turn off your cameras if that makes you feel more comfortable. You are more than welcome to leave them turned on. I'll be leaving mine turned on so that you can see me for a little bit of guidance. So pushing your feet firmly into the floor for me. And just imagining that there's a piece of string slowly pulling your spine up towards the ceiling. And so by doing this, we're sitting up with a spine that's erect and tall, but we don't want to have a stiffness in that spine. So it's almost as if we're a mountain with that strength of a mountain, making sure that we're in alignment, but not holding that stiffness. And so what we've just done is we've opened up our rib cage because we need to breathe properly when we're doing this practice session. It's really hard to do mindfulness when you're crouched over. So I invite you all now just to silently name 5 different things that you can see in the room in which you're practicing. So just silently name 5 different things that you can see. And now silently name 4 different things you can hear, either outside the room in which you're practicing or inside. And perhaps you might also notice some silences in there as well. And now silently naming 3 different things that you can feel. Whether it be your feet firmly on the ground, the chair supporting you, the feel of your clothing against your skin. And now silently naming 2 different things that you can smell. It could be dinner cooking. Hopefully not the smell of a bin that needs to be taken out. And now silently name 1 different thing that you can taste. Whether it simply be the saliva or perhaps some remnants of lunch. So what you've just done is you've tapped into all of your different senses to bring yourself out of worries about the past, anxiety about the future, all the things you still have to do, right into the present moment, the here and the now. And so that technique can be practiced anytime, anywhere, and is quite a quick one just to help bring you back into the present moment. But what I'd like us to do now is to explore that a little bit more. So with your gaze and your sense of sight, I'd like you to explore the different objects that are currently in the room around you. So just noting these different objects and using that sense of curiosity, perhaps noticing different colors, different textures, different shadows, perhaps where the light falls on an object, and then therefore the shadows it creates. And we're not looking to label these objects as good or bad, helpful or unhelpful. We're just looking to explore them. And perhaps noticing things that you haven't noticed before, whether it be the grain of the wood table, how the light is streaming in through a window, the angles or the shapes of different objects. And from time to time when we're practicing, your mind will get hooked by different thoughts. And this is completely normal because that is what the brain is designed to do. The mind is designed to do, I should say. It's designed to think, to have thoughts associated with feelings and emotions. It's all perfectly normal. Each time you notice that you are perhaps lost in thought, just gently unhook, recognize this thought. It could be helpful to label it. Perhaps you could notice it or label it as thinking or planning or whatever emotion it is that's attached with it. So simply labeling it, acknowledging it and unhooking, and then bringing your attention, your focus back to exploring all of these different shapes, colors, textures, and surfaces that you can see in the room around you. And now perhaps just gently bringing your gaze to your hand. and starting to use your curiosity to explore this part of your body which you use probably a whole lot on a daily basis, but don't give a lot of attention to. So I'd like you to notice the different colors that you can see on your hands and the different textures where you have your fingernails compared to your skin and the different gradients that you can see in there. Perhaps you might have rings on. Perhaps you might notice the different lines, and especially those different lines and textures where on your thumb and your palm, they change significantly. They go from having a lot of texture to being a lot smoother. And seeing if you can notice that change. You might like to turn your hand over with your palm up or your palm down. And just keep using your curiosity, that sense of your inner child, to explore your hand, which we don't usually give a lot of attention to. We might be having different thoughts while we're doing this, like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. This is boring. I'm hungry. I'm bored. I can't do this. Planning, worrying, whatever it might be. These are all simply just thoughts. We have the choice of whether we jump on this thought train or not. And I'd suggest it could be interesting to keep exploring this hand that gives you so much. Now just gently placing your hand in your lap. And if you haven't already done so, I'd invite you to close your eyes, or if you feel more comfortable, to gently lower your gaze and just unfocus by picking a spot about 1 meter or so in front of you and not focusing on anything specifically. And now tuning in to any sounds that you can hear outside of the room in which you are practicing. So it's almost as if you're like a giant satellite that's just picking up on different sounds that you can hear, perhaps tuning in for about, 3 to 4 seconds on one particular sound before moving on to the next. And we're not looking to label these sounds as good or bad or helpful or unhelpful. Just using our curiosity to explore them. And perhaps you could notice the different pitch or frequency, tone of all of these different sounds. And perhaps also the silences that you can notice outside the room in which you're practicing. And time again, you'll notice you get hooked by different thoughts. This is completely normal. Even Buddhist monks who've been practicing for 10 or 20 years, they'll keep having thoughts. It's what the mind does. Each time you notice a thought, when you've been hooked, this in itself is a mindful moment. You can acknowledge the thought, name it, and then gently unhook. Return your focus, your attention back to exploring these sounds. And just gently bringing your attention now a little bit closer. So noticing any sounds that you can hear within the room that you're currently practicing. So just paying attention to one sound for a couple of seconds before seeing if you can shift to another sound. And perhaps also noticing those silences, if there are any. And now I invite you to turn your attention and your focus to what you can feel at this present point in time. So bringing your attention, your focus to your feet, which are on the ground, and the chair or perhaps the ground on which you are sitting. And notice that sense of groundedness that brings with it, that sense of support. And just take a moment to perhaps feel grateful for that sense of support and that sense of groundedness. Now perhaps also noticing the different textures that you can feel from the clothes against your body. And perhaps noticing your hands in your lap or wherever you may have placed them. Not only exploring these different textures, but also the different pressure points. Because from time to time, we might feel some pressure points which are a little bit more extreme or perhaps even uncomfortable. It can sometimes help to bring your attention, your focus to these pressure points and see if you can notice if there is any change from moment to moment. If there's a change in intensity, awareness, and exploring that with that sense of curiosity, rather perhaps than the traditional sense of resistance. You might also notice different temperatures around your body. Perhaps your feet might be a little bit colder when they're in contact with the ground or the floor on which you're sitting. Some areas of your body might be a little bit warmer. For example, the mouth might be a little bit warmer. Your hands. If you have a heat pack, maybe where you're resting your hands on your heat pack. And now just slowly shifting to that sense of smell and noticing if you can smell anything, or perhaps a lack of smelling any aromas currently. There's no right or wrong, it simply is. It is your current experience of this present moment. And now finally, tuning into that sense of taste. Exploring anything that you can taste or the lack of taste. Perhaps the saliva in your mouth. And also bringing a gentle awareness to the jaw and making a conscious effort to relax the jaw, which can be a source of tension throughout the day. And now I just invite you to take 3 deep breaths in your own time. And perhaps it could be helpful to put a hand over your belly, because I invite you to breathe deep into your belly on your inhale. So seeing if you can, on your inhale, make that belly expand, and then feeling it deflate as you exhale. So 3 deep breaths in your own time, breathing deep into that belly. And now just gently wiggling your fingers, your toes, creating a little bit of movement in the body. You might even like to put your hands up above your head, have a bit of a stretch. But whenever you feel comfortable to do so, just gently opening your eyes and bringing yourself back into the room in which you're practicing. So welcome back, everyone. What we did then was a brief 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique, which you can practice anytime, anywhere. It is quite short and sharp. But as we then explored, you can extend that out to however long you want to practice for, really. There's no time limit on it. So I'm just curious to know, how did you find both of those techniques, the short version and the long version, and any reflections that you feel comfortable to share? You can either voice your reflections or you can type it into the chat.
Hey, Hannah. I'm sitting cross-legged on the floor, and I decided to put my head on the floor in front of me, and I found myself wanting to nod off to sleep. So I was very relaxed. And when I wasn't finding sleep, my mind was everywhere. Like, I really did struggle to hold a good mindful thought for more than 5 seconds. So, I'm busy head after a busy day.
Thank you, Amanda, for sharing that. I think there's this misconception that mindfulness is about getting rid of thoughts, whereas mindfulness is more about learning to explore the relationship with our minds and the thoughts that we do have. And we'll find that sometimes, for example, as you mentioned, you've had a really busy day, and that then typically translates into having a very, chaotic mind. And we're especially finding at the moment that because we're doing so many things on the go, rather than perhaps just sitting down and doing one thing with focused attention, we've had this scatterbrain attention that we've developed during COVID and before. So I would say I probably mirror you in the sense that I do my practice sessions at the moment, and every 3 or 4 seconds I'll get hooked by a different thought, and that's completely normal. Typically around about a 45-minute mark of formal practice. So what we just did was called a formal practice. You can practice mindfulness informally and formally, which we'll cover off a little bit more of that in the next session. But that formal practice that we just did, typically it does take about 45 minutes of formal practice. So either using your senses or focusing on your breath for all of those waves of the mind that are going on, to perhaps find a little bit more calm. So there is kind of a time factor involved in there, but saying that, I'm all about small steps and practicing when we can and tying things onto existing routines. So practicing informally, for example, like I'm going to challenge you all for the next week to see if you can brush your teeth with your opposite hand, and to notice how that makes you feel, because I guarantee you it feels really uncomfortable. It's a hilarious experiment. So thank you, Amanda, for that feedback. I feel you. I'm on the same wavelength. Would anybody else like to? Oh, we've got a comment here. Thanks, Margaret. You did a walking meditation and it helped settle while you're walking. Fantastic. And then from Becca, slowing down from some of the thoughts, and it's still so easy to get hooked, for sure. And then Kate said, really enjoying it, feeling quite relaxed right now. Yeah, thank you very much. Carol mentioned that someone leading it helps to feel grounded for longer. And typically when we are starting out on a mindfulness journey, it can be really helpful to have guided meditations and teachers taking you through. There's a whole bunch of different apps like Smiling Mind, and various other ones which might be useful for you. If anybody's keen, just shoot me a message or in the chat and I can recommend a few more, because I just caution you to, mindfulness has become a bit of a buzzword, and you can get everything from bloody, mindful hamburgers to mindful pet food. It's just ridiculous. So really using your critiquing where that information is coming to you from, and using your gut to discern if that's going to be useful or not for you, because there is a whole lot of bullcrap out there as well. So saying that, I would like us to move into now our second practice for the evening, which will be focusing on, it's more of a breathwork technique, and what we're looking to do with when we're harnessing the focus and the power of our breath, we're tapping into what's known as our resonant breathing rate, coherent breathing. I can go into a whole lot of science behind it, but we'll save that for another time. Essentially, we're looking to connect our brain with our bodies, and to make sure that they're in alignment. And so typically we find, or what scientists have found, is that this breathing rate is on average between 3 and 6 breaths per minute. And when we're tapping into this rate, we're having a whole lot of physiological changes within the body. And I think, that's what really got me hooked into this space to start with, was that it's been helpful that we've had a bit of a shift from, mindfulness and meditation being a bit woo-woo to, appreciating the beautiful thousands of years of traditions from our Eastern philosophies, and then all of the science that is now showing what essentially we've known for thousands of years. And that neuroscience I find really fascinating. So building upon that, and we will move into coherent breathing. I'll build you up into 5 or 6 breaths per minute. I'm going to attempt to use an app, because you probably don't want me counting you in and out for that whole time. But it could go haywire, and so then I will just rely on my voice for counting. So we'll see how we go in that sense. If throughout any of these practice sessions, I appreciate that we all have different life journeys, And so if at any time you're feeling uncomfortable or you're not heading down a good pathway, then for sure, just stop the practice. There's absolutely no problem with that. And just sit back and maybe tune into your senses if that's helpful, or just take a pause in whatever way is helpful for you. So I invite you once again for this one, for our coherent breathing. It's probably the most helpful if we do take a seated position. So with other practices, we can do them lying down, and we'll do a body scan, I think, in our next session where I will invite you to lie down. But for this one, it's probably best to do it seated. So once again, I invite you to push your feet firmly into the floor for me, or if you're sitting on the ground, in whatever way feels comfortable, crossing your legs, whatever feels most comfortable for you, just to make sure you have that sense of groundedness. And once again, imagine that piece of string slowly pulling your spine up towards the ceiling, so that we're opening up our chests, so that we can tap into this amazing tapestry of our lungs and our diaphragm and this whole breathing system that is going on each time we breathe in and out. So it could be helpful just to rest your hands comfortably in your lap. And I invite you to either continue turning your camera on, you can turn it off with whatever feels most comfortable, and also just closing your eyes or lowering your gaze. And now just simply bringing your attention and your focus to your breath as it enters and leaves your body. We're not looking to control the breath or the breathing rate at this point in time. Just simply bringing our attention to it. And bringing your attention to a place where it's prominent for you. So this could be as the air enters and leaves through your nostrils. It could be the rise and fall of your belly. Just picking a place that the breath is prominent for you. And again, you'll get hooked time and time again by different thoughts. This is completely normal. Each time you notice this thought, or you've been hooked by whatever it might be, just gently acknowledge it. And then slowly bring your attention and your focus back to your breath. And I say gently because there's no need to rush back to it. It's not a competition. And now we're going to move into our coherent breathing practice. I'd like you to just relax the jaw and relax the shoulders and relax the hands and perhaps anywhere else that you might be holding tension at this point in time. And as we're relaxed, I'm going to start a count for us for our breath in, our inhale, and our breath out. And we're slowly going to work our way up. And you're more than welcome to stop at any time. Take a bit of a breather per se, and do what feels comfortable for you. But just beginning now, so breathing in, 1, 2, breathing out, 2, and breathing in, 2, breathing out, 2, and breathing in, 2, breathing out for 2, and breathing in, 2, 3, and breathing out, 2, 3, and breathing in, 2, 3, and breathing out, 2, 3. And breathing in, 2, 3. And breathing out, 2, 3. And breathing in, 2, 3, 4. And breathing out, 2, 3, 4. And breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. And as you can hear it getting louder, breathing in and now breathing out. And seeing if on those exhales you can relax the body, relax your shoulders. Breathing in deep into that belly. Perhaps relaxing the fingers. And breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. Now just slowly letting your breath return to its own natural rhythm. And just noticing at whatever place that feels prominent for you, whether it be the nostrils, the belly. As you breathe in and out, and now just gently wiggling those fingers, those toes. Becoming aware again on the seat on which you are sitting or the ground on which you are sitting, your feet on the floor. And whenever you feel comfortable to do so, just gently opening your eyes and bringing yourself back into the room. So welcome back, everyone. What we just did then was not only a mindfulness of the breath, so becoming aware of when we are breathing in and out, and then also building in a little bit of coherent breathing, which is probably one of the most well-known breathing techniques when we are looking to connect that brain with our bodies and create a sense of equilibrium. So does anybody have any reflections on that second exercise that we've just practiced? Feel free to talk or to type. I have to say I'm not so great at getting through all of the typing. Thanks, Margaret, though. So good. Excellent. Does anyone feel a little bit more equalized or calm, or any other helpful benefits after doing that coherent breathing? Or perhaps was it tricky? Because I appreciate that some people, that was completely new. And I did probably stretch out a little bit with working up to 5 breaths. Very relaxed. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, I hadn't tried that style before, so it was really good.
Yeah, thanks,
And I
Becca.
liked having the music along with it.
Perfect. So could you hear it in terms of how it was coming in? And oh, perfect, excellent. I'll use that now instead of saying breathe into 5 and etc. and having my voice. That'll be great. Love the combination of the instrument. Perfect, excellent. Feeling fabulous, lovely, and giddy in a good way. The music was beautiful. Okay, fantastic. That's helpful feedback for me. Thanks, everyone. Because that was just an app that I downloaded last week to try and help a little bit. You can also use chimes and other bits and pieces along the way. So I was wondering if we could now just recheck in and type in one word into the chat in terms of how we're traveling right now in this moment in time. So type in one word after we've done both of those practices. Relaxed, lovely, clearer, wonderful, calm, refreshed, beautiful. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. Calm. So I am getting a bit of a sense, happy, fantastic, that there has been a shift. Buzzing in a good way. Thanks, Amanda. So I hope you've maybe noticed that it doesn't take long to create a little bit of a shift from, feeling tired and exhausted and zoomed out, etc., to feeling relaxed, happy, and just having a little bit of a shift in a helpful way. So just to finish off with, I have left a little bit of time. Sorry, probably not that much, but does anybody have any questions or any reflections that they'd like to share from the session? Big thanks. Thanks, Catherine. Second that. Beautiful. Cheers, Becca. Yep, I can definitely type in some more apps and share that around. We can probably too, Amanda, include that in the next email for the next session, which I believe I'll just bring up my calendar. It's in about 4 weeks' time or so. Monday, the 28th of September at 5 p.m. Same time, same place, etc. Great session for the end of the day. So important. Thanks, Lee. Very much appreciated. Awesome. I've got to learn as a facilitator to allow for a bit more silence just to make sure that nobody's, gathering up the courage to provide any reflections or ask any questions. It's a skill I'm still learning. Very good. No worries. Well,
hey, Hannah, before you go,
yeah.
Just a question. If I had 3 minutes before I was about to stand on stage or participate in an important meeting or something, what do you think is the most effective use of 3 minutes in terms of a mindful and breathwork moment in 3 minutes or less?
3 minutes or less. It's like the 3-minute thesis. I think, Amanda, it depends on what space you are personally currently in. So, for example, if you are going onto stage and you're feeling very anxious or stressed, and
nervous.
you might even, sorry?
Say I'm really nervous.
Really nervous. So that typically means that we're probably, our bodies are more focused on that inhale rather than the exhale. So what I would suggest is using what's known more as a bit of a whiskey breath per se. There's kind of the water breath, the coffee breath, and the whiskey breath, which we can go into detail next time. But the whiskey breath is seeking to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system and create a greater sense of relaxation. So to harness that, you need to, a good ratio is essentially 1 to 2. So for inhale versus exhale. So if you're breathing in for 2 and out for 4, or it might be in for 3, out for 6, or in for 4 and out for 8, etc., etc., then that's going to help create that shift for you. And simply by doing that, yes, just for a few minutes, you will start creating that shift 100%. Whereas if you were going into that presentation or a meeting and you're feeling exhausted and you needed to jazz yourself up a little bit, then that's when you focus more on your coffee breath and the inhale. And we can practice this one next time. It's where you're expelling the air and not focusing on the exhale at all. So it kind of goes a little bit like this. It's like, I've just over exaggerated a little bit there, but I can instruct us through that one next time. But then we're really tapping into more of our sympathetic nervous system to create that arousal to help us get into that place. So if we are nervous, then I would recommend that 1 to 2 breath ratio. Hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you. Yeah, really helpful.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Okay, well, appreciate we all have dinners to get to and other lives to lead. So thank you all so much for joining me. It was great to see your smiling faces and see you on the chat. So thank you very much. I hope it's been useful. Stay well, stay safe, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.
On behalf of everybody, thank you, Hannah. That was fantastic, and I love that. I hope everyone else did, and we'll be poking it for the next time and making sure we have even more people come along and have a fabulous Monday.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
No worries. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Ciao.
Bye.